So yeah, thanks both of you for being here for the February 2020 ANZ PowerShell user group. Yeah, we were just talking about socialising this a little bit more, but we've got a couple of links. Our main site is that github.io one, which is where we link out to everything. But on Twitter is where we mainly advertise everything, but all of our meetings are also on Meetup, which is where we then send out the Teams links and that for the online meetings. So, being ANZ, I've got two co-organisers over in Aussie, and then I am here. Yay, yeah. Yes. And we've been through this, but we meet every second Monday of the month. Our online meetings are at 10 p.m. New Zealand. Yeah, we did try doing it 2 hours earlier, but we were hitting dinner time in Aussie. And we're like, fine, we'll move it back, because there's like a lot of people from Aussie that join and about 5 people from New Zealand. Right. Like, okay, the New Zealand people, if they're really keen, they can come, you know. And then obviously the local meetings, which is every fourth one, we meet whenever it's convenient locally. So I think the Aussies meet at 6, and here I wanted to make it a bit closer to knock-off time. And then that's the meetings for the next while, just to drive home how often the in-person ones, so the next one isn't until June. And we don't have any topics going forward, so I need to find speakers, which is always quite a task for me. If either of you are keen, I do have a copy of the PowerShell conference book to give away. It's a book that's, it's designed to be like a conference, so every chapter is its own topic, and you pick and choose which topics you're interested in, like picking sessions at a conference. The proceeds of it go to PowerShell.org's on-ramp scholarship, which pays to get people to the PowerShell Summit in Seattle. And its aim is to get underrepresented people into IT ops. The only caveat there, which is relevant to us, is the scholarship is available to everyone, but they might not be able to get you to America. The flights only cover domestic travel. Yes, and I think so I contributed a chapter to this volume. I had to bow out of the first volume because time, and I had overcommitted myself. And I think with this volume we've funded 2 or 3 scholarships. Nice. It's a bit late to fund the next one, but we're putting it into the pool for the follow-up.
Excellent.
Tonight, almost on time. There's my staff photo. So tonight I'm going to go over a tool called Universal Automation. As a heads up, Ray, that's something that I want to start using here once it's out of beta. So I probably could have merged these into one, but over to my branded slides. So Universal Automation, it's a tool. The official tagline for it is the ultra-fast, simple and lightweight automation platform for PowerShell. So at the moment here, and I'm sure a lot of people just use the built-in Windows task scheduler for their PowerShell scripts. I know at your work, there's a bunch of my tasks that are still running as
yeah, they're still running.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them running here, but keeping track of them and their statuses and their outputs and schedules, it's a nightmare.
So why would you not put them in Central?
Because that's even worse for how I'm running, and I can't. Well, yes, it would be even worse, and I'm not sure if it could run some of the scripts that I run, just because of how what they're running. But so what universal automation actually ends up being is it's a step above using the task scheduler, but without throwing in a whole meaty product like Octopus Deploy or what's the other one that comes up all the time?
So it's doing it centrally, whereas in Central would be doing it on each device.
Yeah.
Like it's device related.
Yeah, and you're not chucking in a whole platform that you have to sort of wrangle to make it work with PowerShell. Yeah, I can't remember what the other one was. So, it works with PowerShell background jobs. Basically, each time a script runs, it spins up a PowerShell process, does the job, brings back the details and tears it down again. And it just handles that automatically. It has a couple of different options for scheduling. The default is Linux-style cron scheduling. There's also a continuous option, so you can just say keep running the script forever with a delay if you need to. And you can also just do point-in-time schedules. And also because cron is a little bit hard to understand if you're not used to it, they've got some defaults in there like run every hour or run every 5 minutes that you can pick from a drop-down list. I already mentioned, but it's PowerShell focused, and that manifests in the fact that you can literally just chuck a script in there and it'll react as you expect it to. So if you have a read host command in there, it'll prompt for the information that it's looking for. If you do write progress, it'll show you a progress bar along the top as it runs. If you have parameters in your script, when you go to run it, it'll prompt you for those parameters. Yeah.
Prompt you where?
I will show you when we get to that.
So this is running, architecturally running centrally in one place and then connecting out to wherever it's going to run this against?
Yes and no. I need to have a talk with the developer about an MSP model. That'll help us with being a little bit, having agents out there and having a central view of them. But there's...
Otherwise you've got to sort of create connectivity out to whatever networks it has to be on.
It's got a built-in database, so it stores all of the output from the jobs, when they ran, what the outcome was, all of that. And it's got its own Git integration, like a Git engine built into it. So just straight out of the box, any changes you make in universal automation are all actually commits in a local Git repo. And then you've got the option of tying that to a remote location like GitHub or Azure DevOps. And we'll get into some really cool use cases for that, but it means you can set this up on a server, and then in order to change your scripts, you just change it on your machine, commit it to Git, and it'll pull it down onto the server. So you don't have to go and log into the server anymore to change the scheduled task. You just do it from your machine.
Can you use the persistence in the scripts? So can you look up data from previous runs? Or?
Yes. And you can, this is jumping forward a little bit, but it's got its own REST API, and it's got a whole suite of PowerShell commands, so you can automate your automation. And you can have scripts that fire off other scripts and wait for them and then do things based on the outcome and all sorts.
Okay, cool.
And then we'll see this in a sec, but it's got a built-in dashboard. So the company that makes universal automation is called Ironman Software, and that's because the guy that started it, and he's a fellow MVP, he did Ironmans. So he used that as his,
I mean, he's not a normal human being.
Yeah. But they have another product, which is hugely popular and we've talked about before, Universal Dashboard. So they've leveraged Universal Dashboard to create a dashboard interface for universal automation. So that's one of our management servers and all the scheduled tasks that are running on it. And yeah, I very rarely actually get in there to check whether they've been failing, whether they're running, because it's horrible.
That is horrible.
Yes, And that's nothing compared to what I left somewhere else that won't be mentioned on tape. So while for most of this you're going to be seeing a dashboard that looks like that, the reality is universal automation is actually this, and the dashboard's just a layer on top of it. So what that example is firing up the server and it's scheduling right at the bottom, lines 18, it's doing a new script, and then line 21 is programmatically invoking it. So you've created a script in universal automation, and you say, all right, I want to go and run that. And we'll see all that in practice in a minute. In fact, now, so UA itself, which I'll start calling it from now on because otherwise it's a mouthful, is actually just 2 modules that you can install from the PowerShell gallery. It is currently in public preview, so anyone can go and download and play with it, but it does mean that you have to use this allow pre-release switch on the end, because by default it only looks for live versions of modules. Chances are on most people's machines that allow pre-release doesn't actually exist, which is where I've put this note here about updating the module that gets the modules, because they added this pre-release stuff well after Windows 10 was released. And it is 2 different modules, so you can just run universal automation without any of the dashboard stuff. And then if you want the dashboarding, then that's a sub-module. I already have those installed. So I'm going to start up Universal Dashboard. And because I've been doing a lot of testing, I have a command here to clear out all the local stuff, and that gets rid of the database and the local Git repository. So I've got it there because I needed to run it quite a lot, but if you're actually using this for real, don't do that. So it runs out of the box, and then the sample scripts, it runs on localhost on port 10,000. That is all configurable, so you can make this internet accessible and chuck a certificate on it, and you know, there was a hell of a lot more than what I wanted to do for this.
Sure.
When you actually start the server, by default it pops out a whole nother PowerShell instance and runs it in that, and then you can basically see a running log of all the debug stuff related to the server ticking away in there, and we'll probably flick over to it a couple of times just to see what's happening.
So if you're running this as a single instance business, where would you normally run it? I mean,
so you can, it needs very little resources. You can run it inside IIS or as just a Windows service. You can even run it in, you can run the dashboard as a Azure web app. Pretty sure you can run UA as a web app as well. So there's tons of options. But also you can keep it within your current session by adding in process. So if you add that in process flag, it doesn't spawn off the whole other. And that's how you would do it if you were to run it as a service, because you don't want to start your service and then it spin off something else that immediately closes.
Yeah, right.
But I like having, in fact, I'll make it a bit bigger just because we'll be coming back to it. I like having this because it's nice to pop over to it during these demos from time to time. So at the bottom, you can see about once a minute it does its own check to make sure if anything's changed and committed into Git itself, if something has changed. And as we make changes, we'll see it automatically trigger updates. And as things run, you can see it in the console. It's quite handy. And that keep alive, so it uses a token. When you start the service, it returns a token which you use to connect to it and manage it and do all that and tie the dashboard to it. The out-of-the-box sample just says, run start UA server, and it works the first time. And then the second time you go to start it, it goes, oh, I don't have an app token. That's because if you get a token and you restart the server before that original token's timed out, it just gives you a keep alive token. But the sample scripts don't actually tell you what to do with those. So what I've got here is I start the service and assign whatever comes back to keep alive. That only gets populated with something if the server has already been started. So then I check. If nothing's in there, I go and grab a new token. If something is in there, I use it instead.
Use that as a token.
Yeah. So for the sake of an extra 3 lines, I've made it so that the sample script just works, regardless of needing to know that. And I hit my head against that a lot when I first started, because I was just going off the sample script and going, well, I should just be able to run this, and then ended up having to delete everything because I didn't know how to get the token back, and it was a pain. So I haven't actually run that stuff. So now, believe it or not, creating app token, cool. So now UA's running. And before we get to the dashboard, I want to go through and do some, like set up a script, show it running in the console, get some output from it, just so you can appreciate that it is actually just running in a process, and then the dashboard's sitting on top of it, and it's just a very nice to have, and is all I'm going to be using for the rest of tonight. So you can organise scripts in 2 ways. You can put them in folders and you can tag them. I'll look at tags in the dashboard just because they're nice to look at in there. But to start, I'll create a folder. You can see I've saved that into a variable, because when you create a folder, it returns the folder, and I use that when I'm creating my script to say, put it in that folder that I've just created. So a couple of things when you're creating a script, is you give it a name, you give it the folder and the script itself. So there's the script block of what's going to happen, and I'll talk through that in a sec. But there's this manual time thing. So that's the number of seconds that it would have taken me as a human to do the action that the script's doing. So in this case, the script is checking to make sure my blog's alive, and I've gone, yeah, sure, that would take 30 seconds if I did it.
Why ain't that?
It's a decent demo. The manual time. So what it does is it accumulates how much time you've saved through your automation stuff.
Okay.
So you can go to your manager and say, hey, look how awesome I am, because my automation saved us X number of hours last month. It helps that this is going to be running every 5 minutes. But what it does do is it takes that manual time and subtracts from it how long the script did take to run. So you can't say this job takes me 2 hours, the script takes 2 hours, and expect your time saved to be 2 hours. It's going to be 0. Because you haven't, while you've saved human time, you haven't actually saved time. Yeah. So all the script itself is doing is it's just going off and pinging my blog and returning either it's online or it's down, depending on whether it responds to the ping. So I can run that. And again, I'm saving that into a variable called script because I'm going to refer to it here. And this is giving it its schedule, and I'm using a cron schedule there. That got way too big.
You're right about cron.
So what that's saying is, because I believe it's minutes, hours, days, months, years.
Hours, days, and years, yeah.
Yeah. So what that's saying is run any year, any month, any day, any hour, but only on minutes that are divisible by 5. So effectively, every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I run that.
So obvious.
Yeah. So if I go quickly, because it's 2 minutes away from running, if I try and get a UA job, nothing's returned because nothing's run yet. So you've got scripts, and each time they run, that's a new job. I can invoke that script and tell it to run. And that's going to give me a whole ton of information.
So that's the output from that script.
Well, that's the output from Universal Automation saying, yep, I've queued it. This is, yeah, there's a script in there, blah, blah, blah. So it's just a whole bunch of information. But now, if I go get UA job, I can see that that completed, that there's been some activity on it. -1 on percentage complete means it's complete. It actually means there was no progress bar associated with it. So if I had a progress bar and it got to 100, it would show 100.
100.
Yeah.
So there would be one of those per script. So there's multiple scripts that have been run. Multiple jobs that have run.
Yeah, so there can be multiple jobs. So every time the script runs, so every 5 minutes, it's going to create a new job. And it will retain all the previous jobs.
So we get one of those per job, or that contain multiple?
Yep. So you'd get one of these for every job.
Okay, so ID1, ID2, gotcha.
So now I can see the output of that job. So I can see that it went and pinged my blog. It got 2 replies because that's how many times I told it to do it. Ping complete and blog is online. Now, if you're eagle-eyed and really know your PowerShell,
that's me,
you would know that that quiet switch on the end means that it shouldn't have actually output half of that information that it output.
I was going to ask that.
And we'll get to how we can fix that in a moment. So this, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, that was running in PowerShell 6.2. If I run that in PowerShell 7 with our fancy tribe logo, all it does is return true, which is what I expect it to do. If I go and run it in PowerShell 6, which is what Universal Automation's running in, it outputs all of that stuff we saw in the output. So what's actually happening is at some point in the development, Test Connection started outputting stuff that it shouldn't. And that was fixed in a later version. So we'll circle back to that later and see how to stop that happening.
Run it in version 7?
Yes. But it's how. And it's actually kind of cool because with each job running as its own process, you can specify what version of PowerShell each job runs in.
Yeah.
So I've got scripts that have to run in Windows PowerShell 5.1. So I say you run as 5.1. All these other ones, you can use PowerShell 7 and get all the new features.
That's cool.
So now we have to import the dashboard module. We need to start a new Universal Automation dashboard, or generate one at least. Now the next two are sort of smoke and mirrors-esque. They're actually coming from Universal Dashboard, which you can see from the UD at the start. And these just tell Universal Dashboard how to handle the login page, which controls access to the dashboard into UA. And basically, all I'm saying is I want some credentials and also telling it how to handle requests based on that username. So it's a little bit out of scope for this, and I think I put a note somewhere about it. But you can tie this through to your on-prem domain for authentication. You can tie it through to AD, Azure AD, and all sorts of other providers. But at the moment, all I'm doing is your username admin? You're an administrator. If you're anything else, you're a reader. And that just controls what you can do within the dashboard. And interestingly, because of a quirk of how that works,
That's some tight security there.
because of a quirk of how this is working, it doesn't care about the password. You just have to put something in the password field and it'll let you in.
So it's a token.
And then it's basically giving you a token. So the dashboard user, when you log in, based on the username, gives you a different token. So that's definitely not how you do it in production, but that is how the demo script showed. Well, I've trimmed this down because it did also have an operator user there that I wasn't going to use and all sorts, so I just trimmed it back a bit.
That's good, so you can have different levels of...
Yes, and we'll see that a bit easier in the dashboard. Create a login page, assign that to the dashboard, and that login page just has the method and the policy from above as well. Then we start it, and because I'm not using certificates, I have to tell it it's okay to allow login via HTTP. And you'll see allowing logins over HTTP is insecure. So they are aware.
You're very naughty.
And we can start the dashboard. And I think that's all for that one, yeah. So they haven't branded the dashboard yet, the web interface.
Right.
So you'd expect this to actually say Universal Automation and have the UA logo instead of the UD logo. So I'll start as a non-admin. And yes, that was just me banging on my keyboard for the password.
Okay, so just anything.
So this person, you can see nothing's running. There's been 2 jobs run today. None of them have failed. Nothing's currently running. It should say that something's coming up, and I should probably file that as a bug. And I've already saved a whole minute.
So as long as you didn't run that script which clears this all out, all of this would then persist every single time you run the service. You just keep it running forever and keep it there. So you just have to make sure you keep a copy of your database.
Yeah. I can see my past jobs. Oh, it must have run another time while I've been yakking. Yes, it's just gone then. And I can see output from the jobs, which is still doing its PowerShell 6 output. I can open up the job pane and see more details about it. So here I can see what version of PowerShell it was running at, when it was triggered, that it has output. I'm just seeing all the bugs that I need to go and file when I get home now. What else can we see in here? So if I go into scripts, I can see the script itself and head into it. Now, I'm currently logged in as a reader, and as a reader, I can't see the controls that we're about to see when I log in as an admin up here for manually running the script, for editing it, doing that. I should be able to... No. I cannot see the script. That's good, I guess. I'll go and sign in as an admin because we're going to do... Do you ever see this? Refresh. I tend to only get it when I'm signing in and out of different accounts, so that's... Also, there's meant to be a config thing here for admins. If I go into here, click into there, click into here, config's back. So I've been playing with this a lot and filing a lot of bug reports. It is still in preview.
Their version of preview.
So if I go back into scripts, you can see I now have actions down here. So I can go and run the script, I can open script page.
They add a script from this
Yes.
GUI?
Yeah. And now I have options up here, so I can change the schedule, I can edit the thing, I should be able to see the script. And if I wanted to, I can also edit it in the browser as well. We have a look at the schedule. So at the moment it's set to cron, but I believe, yeah, so this is creating a schedule, and what that'll do is add it as another schedule on top of the one that I've already got.
So,
Which, if we go into the schedule tab, I don't think I can actually edit it. So I can remove it and add another one. But under schedule, you've got your cron and easy scheduling, which has a list of every outside that, Saturdays at midnight, blah, blah, blah. And all these are, from my understanding, is just shortcuts to cron expressions.
yeah.
So like this one would be /15 instead of /5. You can do continuous. So run every 100 hours and just run once. Not implemented yet. So that's just, when it's implemented, that's just setting a time in the future. So you go, I just want this to run at Sunday at 1 a.m. and never again, unless I tell it to run again. Because you can do on demand and just go run now, set and forget.
Could you not set something in your own script that would just stop it? Cancel it.
You can.
Cancel it.
And what I have, and I've had to do that in when I want to do stuff like run on the second Tuesday of the month. What I end up doing is just saying run every Tuesday, and then the script says, is it the second Tuesday? And if it's not, then it just exits out. But then you can have your output say, ran on first Monday of the month, quitting, just so you know why it didn't finish. And yeah, it's the same problem with the task scheduler, is because you don't have nice recurrence things like Outlook does. I've asked for
The
it.
scheduler could be a little more
Yeah.
refining to make it a bit more friendly. But I mean, the cron thing's pretty powerful, I guess. It's
Yeah.
sit there and figure it out.
The cron thing, once you've figured it out, is a hell of a lot better than just what you're getting. Lee. Hell of a lot better than what you get out of the box with the task scheduler.
Right.
But it is that learning curve, and it is still not quite as good as the Outlook recurrence thing. So I have some shortcuts here because I wasn't going to remember everything. Oh, there's some information about authentication. And I'm going to have a link to all of this stuff at the end, so yeah. If I grab that, because it's a lot of typing, I can go into config, and there's this PowerShell versions. So out of the box, it knows about Windows PowerShell, which is the 5.1. It knows about PowerShell 6, but it doesn't know about the new PowerShell 7 yet. So I can add a new PowerShell version, go on the path, and go 7.0.0-rc.2. That can be anything.
It's very specific, yep.
It is very specific because that's the specific version I've got installed at the moment. In fact, yeah, 7.0. So release candidate 2 is out now, and it should GA next week. At that, and now I can go back to my script and say, hey you, when you run, I want you to use PowerShell 7. Go to that and say change. So you'll notice that says commit message. That's because it's literally doing a commit into the local Git. The local Git repo. We should see it.
They think at some point.
In fact, it might have already done it. But if we look at the history, we'll see that commit message against whatever files it touched for that. And now if we run it, you can see the PowerShell version there. And once it's finished, running jobs. It's done. Past jobs. Don't know if that's... Oh, it's 7 past. Of course it's the one I'm looking for. If we look at the, what I just did there, so I was in here, I was in here, I was looking at past jobs. What I did was I clicked on the script name.
You did.
That takes me to the script page, which I'm already on. What I need to do is click on the ID for the job, or I need to click on the open job page button, because otherwise it's one of those things where they've gone, here's a link to the script, and we'll put that everywhere, even if you're already on the page and looking at a list of jobs. So it's little things like that that are still getting polished.
Fine-tuned.
Yeah. And then if I look at the output, I just see bloggers online because it's not outputting all that extra stuff that PowerShell 6 was. Now, quickly run through some of the native integration stuff. And I've already written it all out, so you don't have to watch me typing. So as you mentioned, Jay, by the way, there's the folder that I created via the interface. What you need to be aware of, and I just opened feature requests for this today, is if you're managing your scripts from here, they're all going to go into the root folder, regardless of which directory you're looking at. So it's one of the, and you also can't move scripts once they've been added. So I've asked.
Well, not from the UI. You have to go
not from the UI. Yeah, and even then from the command line, you would have to do. You can't do it with the UA commands. You'd have to just move the script. And, yeah. So I've asked them to make it a bit nicer.
Okay. So at this stage, the easiest tool just moving to the certain folder and
yeah. Or do what I did at the start and create the scripts via PowerShell, and then you can specify this is the folder I want to put it in there, just to make sure it goes where you want. And I'll show you the folder structure in a sec as well. So I'm creating a new script. This one will take 2 minutes to run. Script in, and I don't care about that. So files. Open the script. So this doesn't have any schedule or anything, so I'll go and click run. And you'll see there's nothing here asking me for input or anything. I can override the PowerShell version during the on-demand runs if I wanted to. Leave that as default, click confirm. And it'll sit there running for a sec. And in a moment, we should see it stopped and say waiting for feedback. So it does give you a button there to satisfy what it's waiting for. But also, if I go back to the front page, I can see it on the main list of running jobs, and it also puts pending to 1. So that tells me that there's something sitting there waiting for me to address it. Yeah. So if I click view pending feedback, it asks who are you, which is what the script was prompting for. So I say Josh, submit that. It will eventually go back into a running state, or we won't see it change and it'll just disappear. Go onto the open job page, look at the output, and I can see that it's used the output that I can see that it output the input that I gave it. So that's read host. A better way to do that would be parameters. So I've pre-written that. All this is doing is it's rehashing the blog pinging script, but this time it's asking what the address is and how many times to ping it. So I'll go back over here, scripts, and add another. And you'll notice if I look in here, so in the root is that script, in my folder is that script. Just, it's really annoying. So this is parameters.
So they've been responding to your requests?
I'll put in there. Files. Now when I run this one, you'll notice it's now got a parameters tab. And when I click into that, it asks me for the address. And I want to ping 4 times. You can do things like making them mandatory and then it won't let. So at the moment, if I ignored those parameters, it would still run. And because of how I wrote my script, it would fail. But you can make those parameters mandatory, exactly like you can in PowerShell, and then it would force you to put something in there before you can run the script. And you can, it's on the roadmap to do validation as well, I believe. So if you say something like, it must be a valid URL, it will be able to check that. That might have slipped in already without me noticing it. And now if I look at that one, you can see it's online. I probably should have picked something different so it wasn't just the same thing it was pinging before. Another cool one, especially...
When you set it to run 4 times, is it running that one instance 4 times?
No. Sorry, that's a generic PowerShell thing. So when you're doing your test connection in PowerShell, if you do it in command prompt, it just does it 4 times and that's it, it's done.
Right.
In PowerShell, you can say, do it once, or do it 10 times. And that's just how many times it sends an echo request before it says, yeah, it's up. So I tend to put that, I personally put that at 2, just because sometimes a machine doesn't respond on the first one. It's like it wakes up on the first echo request, and then you send another one that goes, oh, I'm online.
Okay, so it's saying test it a few times or however many times before you check.
Yeah. Because if you're doing it to 100 servers, pinging 4 times is going to take a hell of a lot more time than pinging 2. It's just one of those habits that I've gotten into. And if I could ping once, I would, but it's not always reliable. I'm actually, yes. So I mentioned write host as well, and that showed in that output down here where it was -1. But we can actually see that inside the dashboard, which is really cool because then you get an idea of how much it's got to go. It helps if I click on the right one. We're just racking up the time saved.
You can pay your whole year's worth of salary in no time.
So what does that open script?
That just, when you click create, it goes to the script page rather than just dropping you back to where you were. So if I run that and just go confirm, once it starts running.
Yeah, I can tell that you've been using it lots because stuff like that's not that obvious.
Yes. But now you can see there's that processing thing along the top that's ticking up as the script goes. So
that's nice.
in a lot of the Acello stuff I've got, because of how limited the API pages are, I put this in there so that I can see how much longer I need to wait to get all the tickets or all the contacts or something out. Which means then once we move it over to this, I'll actually be able to get an eye on it. And I believe it surfaces it elsewhere, or should surface it elsewhere, in that, because you can specify when you're doing write progress how much time is left. And I tend to do some funky maths with that to fudge it a bit, but it would show how much longer it's got to go as well if you gave it that. I believe there's only one more actual script thing I want to show, which is the pipeline output. So when you're running a script, in PowerShell you're dealing with the pipeline and objects coming out and all of that sort of stuff. Universal automation can handle that. You don't actually have to put a manual timer in here, by the way. I'm just doing it so that it ticks up.
Good habit. Yeah. Sweet.
So all I'm doing is getting a list of the processes on my machine and sorting it by name. What was that output? Something like that. This one, when I was testing, actually seemed to take a while to run, which was interesting because in theory it shouldn't. Once it does, in fact, while it's running, let's have a look at this. So we can see it running there. We can always see what's currently processing on there. But in the past jobs now, this is a running list of all of the jobs that have run. As you can see, there's multiple times it's checked the blog and it paginates it. So as to not overload the system, because one of the earliest things I did was run something every 2 minutes, and I left it running all day. And then whenever you went to the past jobs thing, the entire dashboard just slowed to a halt. And we found this out when I was doing a demo for another user group. So I'm like, this was working like 4 hours ago. What the hell is wrong? And then I jump on to report it to the developers, and they go, oh yeah, we figured that out like 2 hours ago. But now pipeline's done. And I can, so there's two options. You can just see the output, which is literally, well, it's basically what was written to the console. So it looks very similar to that. Very similar to that, just with a little bit of extra metadata next to it. So that information is telling me that it went to the information stream rather than the warning stream or the error stream. And also when it hit the console as well. But it also captures the actual pipeline output, the objects themselves, which means via the UA commands, you can get those pipeline objects and do more with them as if you run the script yourself and you're sitting there with things in a variable. So I can dive into each one like one password, and then I can see all of the values for it. So its handle count is 305, cool. Its ID is that. Yeah, so I can, let me check what the command is. Going off script. Not there though. Job, pipeline output, ID 11. No. Job ID, I was close. So now I can do things like where, what's his name? So that's pulling it, that's pulling the pipeline information from the database for that job and treating it as if I'd run that script and just got the information, which means I can come back later and do things like this. I want to see the Zoom process at the time that job ran, and then I could go and do things like, hey, if Zoom's still running, go and kill it, and it's on ID, whatever. It's very handy and something you can't do with task scheduling. Now, here's where things might get a little bit sticky. I'm going to, I don't know which order to do this in. I'm going to stop Universal Dashboard, Universal Automation, and Universal Dashboard. What I'm actually going to do is close everything and reopen it just to make sure it works. So when you're starting the UA server, so you remember previously I did start UA server port 10,000. I've added git remote and git remote credential. That's telling it my remote for Git is GitHub, and here's the credentials to log in. So when I start UA with that, it fires up, it does all its things. And while I was thinking about that, we'll connect to it. We'll fire up the dashboard. We don't actually need the dashboard for this, I think. But so let's go to GitHub and see what it's done. And all going well, it's updated 28 seconds ago. So this is now my remote copy of that Git repo sitting up on GitHub. And if I look at the commits, it's all of the system stuff. So that's where I added the schedule to my script. That's when I added the script. That's when I added my script, all the demo scripts. So it's kept that whole history of everything I've done. What I can do now, because going through and cloning it locally is going to take too long. I'll explain what I'm doing in a moment, because it's easier to see locally. If I head into this file, which is the metadata that's around that first script that I did that goes off and pings my blog every 5 minutes, I can see the schedule here for it. I go, actually, I want that to happen every 2 minutes. So I edit it there, I can go and update it and commit it. Now what's going to happen is eventually, next time this does a sync, it's going to see that that schedule's changed and change it within UA and just start running every 2 minutes. So how I would normally have done that is have this on my local machine, change it in VS Code or whatever my editor is, save it, send it up to GitHub, and then the UA server would see that it's changed and pull it down. While we wait, in your local app data, I can't make it bigger, sorry.
That's fine, okay, yeah.
That's the database itself. That sits outside of the Git repository. So the actual job output in that doesn't go to Git, which also means there's not a backup of it.
Yeah, okay, so it's only the script and all the commits.
Yeah. So inside that folder is any folders you've created. Oh yeah, I forgot to turn that down. And any of the scripts. But also there's this .ua file, a folder, which then has basically the exact same layout, except that it has meta.ps1.
Yeah.
So every script has a meta version of that script, and that just specifies the name of it, the manual time, the schedule if it had one, which means you can manage all of that stuff, again, locally instead of having to do it on the server.
Yeah.
So if you know your cron schedules, you can go in, like I did in GitHub, and just tweak it if you need to tweak it, or stop it if you need to stop it.
Down.
Yeah. see that that schedule's changed every 2 minutes. So at some point, yeah, there we go. So it picked up that there was a change, it downloaded it, and it changed the schedule. There's only 2 more things I'm going to show, and that's tags. And we'll truncate this a bit, and then I'll show you what happens if you wipe out your local repo, but you've got a remote version of it.
Yeah.
So tags, we want to be an admin for starters. So when I crashed it and reloaded it, it didn't make me an admin.
Your reader.
I think if I click around a bit, I'll get my admin stuff back again. There we go. And I've got a new tag button. So what I have in here is tribe colors. I'm only going to create one of these 2 because it just works. So things you can use tags for are like prod and dev and test, or who the owner of a script is. It's just a way of categorizing your scripts. Makes them easy to search and report on later. Create a new tag. Now what happens when, I've noticed once I've turned on a get remote, saving things tends to be a little slower because it is pushing up to GitHub and verifying that it's actually got there. So you're waiting a bit longer rather than it just doing the thing and going, yep, sweet, we're done. You can see now I've got a tag with a little color on it, which is our blurple. And I can go into any of my scripts and tag it. And all of those changes, yeah, there we go. I can see that as well on the, there. So there's a column for tags as well, so if you want to quickly, where they really come in handy is when you're doing it from the command line. You can go scripts where tag contains blah. Now all of that, you can see the tags are shown in the meta file now, and also there's a tags file which contains information about all the tags. So it's just name, description, and color. So again, if you had 20 tags you wanted to create for some reason, you can just do it via this instead of the web interface. It's a hell of a lot quicker. So the last thing I want to show is, because everything's up in GitHub, what happens when everything disappears? And then I start it up again, pointing it at that remote. So I've closed everything. There should be nothing running now. Yep, cool. It can't talk to anyone. And I'll head in here, and I was saying to Jay before, that's your database file. It sits outside of the Git repository, which means it doesn't replicate up to GitHub, which has 2 implications. If something sensitive ends up in a script's output, it doesn't end up in GitHub, but it also means you don't have a backup of the database. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the entire folder. So that's my database, that's my scripts, that's everything gone. Then I come in here, grab that bit to make this a bit quicker. So again, I'm starting it up, telling it localhost port 10,000, but this time, hey, you're a brand new server, but go and talk to Git and get to your stuff. Terrible.
Go get it.
Any luck? So we've got a brand new database. So doing this, we lose all of the persistence and the run history in that. But in the repository, it's pulled down everything from GitHub. And because it's got all the metadata, that script that has a schedule on it's just going to start running. It doesn't need me to go in and say, yeah, you're enabled, keep going. It's just going to go.
You just need to make sure you back up that database to keep history.
Yeah. So one of the things so there's two things I want. One of them needs the developers, the other one's just something I'm going to do. The one I'm going to do is for high availability. So I want to have 2 of these servers running and have them checking on each other. So the scripts themselves will try and run on the same schedule, but they'll go, hey, is the master running? All right, I won't run. Is the master running? Okay, I won't run. Is the master running? No, it's down. Okay, I'll take over.
Right. And then it becomes the master.
Yeah. And that might involve doing a quorum witness or something fancy just to make sure all 3 of them can see each other. And yeah. What I want from them, though, is a way of distributing it. So this is running on a server. The scripts are running on that server. What I want to do is have non-dashboard versions out at customer sites running scripts for those customers, but then I want the data about those coming back to a central point. So I can see what's running where, what the outcomes were. Maybe not the output, but definitely whether it was successful or failed or what. So I can go, all right, there's an issue at X customer, I'll go and jump on their server and see what's wrong. Or see what the output was.
So the sync to the command line in there.
Yes.
So is it just a service running at the background or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's baked into the universal dashboard UA itself. So just every minute it's doing a check for anything that's changed in the Git remote.
Can you save the output of this? Or?
You can, when it's like this, obviously you can. There are settings for changing the logging level and logging to a file and all sorts. So yeah, you can definitely see it if you need to see it, or just fire it off.
Okay. And all the jobs are running after run the outputs. Does the output save it into that database?
Yep.
Or okay, so if it's gone in.
Yeah. So if your scripts are generating a lot of output, that database could fill up pretty quick. So you don't want to be doing what I did and just going, every process on my computer, output that, because that's going to
run every minute.
Yeah, and do it every minute. So as I've mentioned, because this is really important to me, you can run, that's a script. It's running on your you're writing it on your workstation. I've been playing with animations. You sync it up to GitHub, and then that goes down to universal automation. So it means you don't have to remote onto your server like we would have to at the moment to change things. You just do it locally, commit it. In worst case scenario, something goes wrong and you just revoke that GitHub token, and then your data's safe. Now, did mention this as a product. They've got universal, that looks wrong when you see it written like that, universalautomation.io. They've got information about it, docs, and you can purchase a license. The license is 100 US. I'm not going to say that. 100 US, and that gives you one server. And so that pays to run it on one server, and it gives you a year of support. I believe once that year's up, the license keeps working, but you don't get support and updates. If you, and I don't get a commission from them. If you just want to play with it, you can run it without a license. You can do up to 3 concurrent jobs and up to 100 jobs a day. So if you're only, so if you're only doing a couple of jobs once a day or once an hour, then you'd probably fit inside that. fact, we might fit inside that. But... Oh, look, I didn't put the link in.
/link.
Yeah. So if it's actually probably a little bit easier just to...
You can just cut this bit out of the video.
No. So if you go to GitHub, because it's not going to show on my popular repos, because why would it? So if you go to Windows/Talks, there will be a folder that I'll link to later, which has the PowerPoint slide and all the demos. And what I tend to do is add references and information and video links and all of that stuff after the fact, just once I get a chance to sit down and do it. So yeah, Windows/Talks, it's all in there. My old repo got a little bit chaotic, so what my New Year's resolution for the year was start a new one and keep on top of it.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, well, I've only done 2, so it makes it kind of easy.
It's success.
This one?
And to download it, just go onto their website.
Yeah, so in fact, let's... So there's the docs there, download there, and all that does is take you to the PowerShell gallery.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's information about
Too cheap.
how to do it. I've been
Especially they're going to support it.
meaning to talk to them about a MSP license as well.
I need to talk to somebody about how to make it a going concern.
Yeah.
Because it's important for the sustainability of something, using something like this, is you want it to continue to exist, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes. So Jenkins was the other one that I was forgetting. So he's got FAQs on what the difference between different products are and
nice.
all that. And they're very responsive to feedback. I'm sad one my my quote didn't show up there.
So have you started using their dashboard yet?
No. I've been POCing one. Hang on. Let me stop recording. Stop recording.